that shit would probably feel so nice. When you're listening, your skin's glistening. It's like, yo, all these dope streamers gonna fucking get it in. Like, yo.
Let's go to the mall, let's go, and I'll bring both balls. One to the left and one to the right.
Meet in the middle, a testicle fight.
Take it to America, how do you do? Feeling like a love pirate, shiver me boots. I ain't got time for the drama, hopping on the train, motherfucker, choo-choo. Come on, yeah. Come on. Motherfucker, do you wanna make a love to me? Come on, yeah. Motherfucker, do you wanna get fucked with?
The outer wall, that is, of the wall of Parliament. Literally, the House of Parliament. The fence outside, there's the wall there. It literally throws up against the building. And then the next day, the millionaires marched in there and did nothing about it. He literally just went, I'm like, do you know that guy, that greatly, ironically, revered historical figure in American history? One of the most crucial fucking things that ever happened in the establishment of this nation. I'm like that man.
Oh, God, I'm going to die.
I'm Paul Revere. Honestly,
unintentional comedy.
It's genius. Honestly, this is beyond satire. Amanda, you're wrong, America. Make it stop. Jesus Christ. Yeah, I'd make you cry like I cry when I finish masturbating to hentai. I've screamed so much tonight, I'm fucking going hoarse. I'm a tiny horse, clippity-clop. My hooves. I've gone fucking mental. Anyway, I was able to pick up a cat and show him to the camera because he's right there. Absolute king. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I really appreciate YouTube after spending some time on Twitter.
What are you doing, Ricketts?
They're cheering for losing in the Republican Party. Think about who's moderating this debate. This should be Tucker Carlson, Joe Rogan, and Elon Musk. We'd have 10 times the viewership.
What?
Hello?
Hello. How's it going?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Pretty good. Happy New Year's.
Yes, Happy New Year.
2024.
Did you get up?
Sorry, go ahead.
What did you get up to last night?
Well, I've been streaming for a long amount of time.
That's fair.
So I've been streaming, yeah. I mean, on stream, we talked to a bunch of people. I talked to USA Hole, talked to... Oh, my brain is not remembering or functioning very well at the moment. Let's see.
Yeah, that's fair enough. You've been going a long time, yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, a lot of fun conversations. And I'm looking forward to this one. I don't think we've ever really interacted in this way. I've been in your chat a couple times, but not enough to really get to know. What's that?
Yeah, I just assume I've been in a hangout with someone at some point over the course of 1,000,000 years now. So I have no idea.
Yeah. I haven't really got to know like your content really or what you do. I know, you're generally like covering news and politics. Yeah. But I guess because of that, like, do you want to introduce yourself for chat? This is Kflogan1875, or you will go by Kevin Logan as well. Is that also a thing?
That is my legal name, yes. Yeah, I do politics, leftist perspective on Twitch. I stream most days. It's if you enjoy a boring person talking boringly about boring things, that's the stream for you.
I mean, it sounds, just because you use boring 3 times, now I'm like, is it really boring though? 3 times in one sentence.
Well, I do try and make it boring.
You're attempting. Yeah. You're like, how do I make them sleep?
Well, it's not reverse psychology. It's dampening down expectations. Right. If anyone does pop over there, they're like, "Oh, this is probably boring," right. And then they realise, "Oh, it's maybe not so boring." They, what I mean? It's better than that.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. That reminds. It's like pessimistic optimism. Like when you expect the worst, so that like no matter what happens, you'll be like, I mean, if the worst happens, then you're like, I expected it, and if it's slightly better than that, you're
Yeah.
like, oh, you can kind of, I guess, be a
Exactly.
little
Yeah.
happy about it.
That's what when people say like reach for the stars. No, don't do that. Have low expectations, and then you can meet them. That's what I reckon.
Right.
That's
Right.
that's
Okay.
the key to a happy life.
I mean, for sure, going into 2024, maybe that's my approach for real. Because I don't know if I've really reached for the stars or had low expectations. I feel like I just been like in a middling state. So maybe like that's where I'm fucking up. Is I should go even lower, and then that whenever I hit that middle, the mid range, then I can be happy about it. Does that sound right?
Yeah. Well,
Have we
I'm,
distilled
I'm
it?
only I'm only sort of playing anyway. But like, yeah,
Right, I know. I've seen
no.
you do a lot of fun stuff just in the clips, so I don't think that you're actually boring, but I appreciate the
Well,
commitment
thank
a
you.
bit.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. No. People. Yeah. I do have a very dry, sarcastic sense of humor. So,
uh-huh.
yeah, we have fun. I enjoy what I do. We do like I don't just do politics. I do kind of I'll cover internet drama and dumb shit like that as well.
I mean, it can be fun. I mean, it really can. Um,
Yeah.
do you have like a favorite kind of content, or is there something where like when you get some of this fresh, whatever new video drops from blank, like you're like,
Oh yeah.
yes,
Well, I love it when like conservative people freak out. That's
yeah,
always fun.
which is like
Like the
every
guy who's
day.
going
It's just a matter
names
of
or something a
yeah,
while back. But that for me is so much fun.
it's a
Um,
highlight.
I'm not entirely sure what it prefers, in all honesty, but that's what I enjoy. Yeah,
Yeah,
just laughing at idiots, really.
right. That makes sense. How did you get into all of this? Like, how did you get into this space? How long have you been streaming for?
Oh right. Well, I started doing prepared content on YouTube initially, like video essay stuff,
Okay.
and I
I
realized
mean, you have
that
the
was
voice
far too
for
much
it.
work.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah,
Yeah.
I realized it was far too much editing stuff together and scripting stuff. So I
Right.
moved over to doing the far more
Seems to be a common thing with a
straightforward.
lot of us.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's a lot of work, a lot of effort. Um,
Yeah.
and you
But
have to be.
then it's also a lot of work and effort here. It's just different.
Yeah, no, it's do it in a different way, but like it's less. You get less of the tedious stuff. Like for me, the
Yeah.
editing process was such a drag. Um,
Right.
it's like the kind of preparation you do for a stream is like observing the world around you and like chronicling it, like and things like that. Which doesn't seem like
Yeah.
anything near as boring, frankly. I enjoy that sort of stuff I would do anyway.
Yeah. You just like you talking shit to your friends in real life, or like laughing at stuff, pointing things out to them. But now, you can
Yeah,
find
exactly. Yeah, like that.
a group of people.
Yeah. Like I mean, like I said, I do sort of politics and stuff. So part of the preparation is watching the news, which again I would do anyway. So it feels
Yeah.
less chore, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, and then there's the component now of like you're not just watching the news and being like, oh, another day of bullshit or whatever. Like you can be like, okay, how are we going to talk about this? What's interesting about you have a reason to engage with it more than just having it fed to you every day, I guess.
Oh yeah. Well, exactly. You end up in a sort of somewhat strange situation. Albeit, well, it depends how you look at it. It's either it's a silver lining in a bad situation, or it's a very weird reaction. But when something awful happens, not necessarily awful like war or whatever, but like say with Donald Trump, for instance, who
Yeah.
was just a cascade of bullshit.
Yep.
Every day you do something so dumb that it was just
See,
easy to do.
I can't say stuff like that
You're like,
with my accent. Like I can't say stuff. It wouldn't work. But when you say it, cavalcade of bullshit, it just it hits. Sorry for interrupting you.
No,
When bad things happen like that, what were you saying?
yeah, when like Donald Trump would say something terrible, just a dumb thing,
Yeah.
that was bad in general. Ideally, you don't want a president being that fucking stupid, but
Yeah.
it
Ideally.
was a joy in my soul of like, oh, well, I can definitely make fun of that on stream. That's definitely going to be like an interesting segment or whatever, which is a
Yeah.
strange reaction, but doing content, you kind of have to look at it
Right.
that way.
Yeah. No, I mean, because comedy comes from like a place of pain most of the time, or a lot of the time,
Yeah,
a place of
yeah.
sorrow or whatever, and like, yeah. So that makes sense that is the reaction because you're looking at this like, how the fuck could this be? Like, how we arrived at this point? And so like you just laugh at it because I don't know. Same thing as gallows humor, maybe less severe, but very like similar in nature, I would say.
Yeah, well, that's the way I look at it. Like the world is full of mad shit, and I intend to, I don't know, point it out and laugh as best we
Yeah.
can.
Hmm.
Me and my audience, that little crew of people, like I don't know, some amount of positives out of the negatives, I guess.
Yeah, I guess right. And you can get that stuff. I mean, is there anything that you don't like engage with, particularly because it's maybe like it's just something that you don't like seeing or dealing with, or maybe it's just not interesting to you, but it's something that would generally be covered
Uh,
on like a stream like yours?
oh, wow. I'm trying to think. Is there anything I don't? No, I'm pretty open, to be honest. I'll deal with pretty
Yeah.
much anything.
Hmm.
I mean, the stuff I don't tend to focus on just because I don't necessarily know a lot about it, which is fine. Like I'm not one of those people who pretends to understand or know everything. I'm not. I'm
Yeah.
not like that. I don't think. We'll just say I
Right.
don't understand this. I can't give you an opinion. Whereas,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, there's nothing I won't engage with because I tend to, like I say, try and make difficult situations seem entertaining, and we try and get something positive out of it. But yeah, there's nothing I won't engage with. No.
What's been on your list lately? Obviously Palestine, I'm guessing. Um,
Yeah, yeah, that's
and
featured pretty.
right. I mean,
Um,
yeah.
the
What else?
no, go on. Sorry, what were you saying?
Oh, I mean, I used to do a lot more politics coverage, but my, when I talk about news and politics or that kind of thing, it's usually around the lens of like local journalism, or I'll cover things that are very specific. Like Lauren Boebert's in my district. I've interviewed her twice, and like, it's a whole meme and
Oh
stuff.
wow.
So she recently declared that she's switching districts. I don't know if you heard about this. Because she can't
No,
win.
no.
She can't win her district. Yeah.
Hmm.
So that's pretty crazy. But yeah, like, so I haven't engaged even with the Palestine stuff at all. Like, I don't really feel the need to because there's plenty of coverage of it. Like, I don't think my
Yeah.
perspective needs to be added to it. But of course,
Hmm.
like, if you're engaging in the news and politics space, current events are kind of something that you should be covering. Not that you have to, but
Yeah.
like, it makes sense to be doing it. So yeah, I
You
don't
say
know.
you've interviewed Lauren Bobbin before.
Yes, I have.
That's
Long
amazing.
before I
Okay.
was streaming, but yeah, not super
Oh,
long, but
okay.
yeah.
You didn't go to the theatre with her, did you?
No, I didn't. I didn't know that I should have tried. Then I
Oh,
could
there
have
you
got
go.
taken her
Well,
down early.
you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Exactly. Yeah, I've learned that lesson now. No, I did report on a story. Normally, I don't report on. Wouldn't report on like Lauren Boebert unless it's election year, and then I usually would do, because I am interested in politics. I end up getting assigned like a lot of political stories. I did interview.
Yeah.
Um, so that's why I would interview candidates and stuff. That's how I interviewed her. But there was one year where the story came out that she shot her neighbor's dogs. Um,
Jesus
and
Christ.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that was the story. I mean, I don't mean like a news story. It literally, I'm kind of in that area, and so like, I literally had seen the very first Facebook post like making this accusation, and I was like, oh shit, like I'm hopping on this right now. It's in my area, so I covered that, and like it was a whole. We did it on stream. It was a whole rabbit hole, and turns out she didn't shoot her neighbor's dog. Her neighbor shot her neighbor's dogs, and I mean they were out like they were out killing a lot of other animals. So I don't know.
Oh, what the fuck?
Yeah, it was a wild ride.
Yeah, that's
Keep your-
intense.
Keep your dogs in, especially like huskies and breeds like that. Yeah. So, anyways, yeah, I have experience with Lauren Boebert a couple times here and there.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, like if I were you, that's what I would be like, looking at him. You know, the United States, like, is that like I wouldn't even ask if we're okay at this point. We're not, but
Yeah. No, absolutely not. I mean, we're in a very similar boat, actually.
yeah.
It's not a good place.
What is kind of like on your mind as far as, you know, over there, like something that stands out as like this is very concerning, or like maybe.
Oh well,
Yeah.
the corruption, absolutely corruption on every level.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Just completely
The government
corrupt to
just
the core. Shit.
awful, corrupt, it's evil nonsense. Basically, they're probably going to get
Yeah.
voted out next year, so that should be good. Again, good content, you know.
Who would that be? The Tories?
Yeah, the
The-
Conservative Party are the current government, and they're atrocious and very, very unpopular. So they're going to get voted out. Not that they'll be replaced by anyone particularly brilliant, but
Right.
it will be fun to watch them cry on election night. That's always fun.
That's what we can take away from. The libs will
Exactly, yeah.
the libs will re-begin the
I
cycle
can't-
of getting but at least we can laugh.
I can't make the world better, but I can laugh at bad things happening to bad people.
Right. Well, I mean, you know, I guess like there is something to be said about a community space that you have, and like a place where people can, you could call it whatever you want, commiserate, or just sort of, I think for me, because I report on local journalism in a rural area, like just the fact that I've been able to do it with people who are not from here, who can look at it and be like, what the fuck, this is insane. And I can be like, thank you, because I feel crazy. Like, so I think it's good to be able to have that online space where we can be like,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, I do.
Yeah.
Like I say, when I look at American politics, obviously I'm very much an outsider, and so
Yeah.
I think it is quite cathartic for my American viewers, who may look, half of my audience is American, basically.
Yeah.
And I think they find it quite cathartic to have someone from the outside point the madness of it out, especially with things like guns, which is that's a very American thing. Very few other countries seem to have
brother.
that problem.
Yeah, no shit. I mean, that's exactly what I'm speaking towards in a, like a geopolitical sense, where I'm even just me as a very rural person, or somebody who grew up in a rural area, talking to people from other parts of the United States, I'm like, that's cathartic for me. But yeah, then it is nice to have that outside perspective reminding you that no, that shit's crazy, you guys. America,
Yeah.
you need to stop. You're not going to, but you should.
Right.
Are you shocked by anything anymore? Like, does anything? I find it hard to be like shocked at this point with everything that's happening.
No, not always. You sort of you end up noticing patterns of behaviour.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, look, I have a sort of historical theory on this, that I don't think it was ever any better in the past. It was just more easily hidden because
Right.
media was like, for instance, like when I don't know, the police do something awful, you think, well, they probably always did that. It's just they didn't used to have
course.
everyone with a
Of course.
on the
Probably even
right?
more. Probably even more.
Yeah.
Like, to some extent, because, yeah, there was less accountability in some ways. Yeah, I mean, I think that I agree with that. Like, it's just a general awareness of things happening, and it's not like things don't even have to be hidden necessarily as a conscious effort. It can just be the fact that, however long ago, you just don't know. You just don't know what's happening, in another
Exactly. Yeah.
place.
That's what makes people think. Look, it's a lot worse now. It's not because it wasn't bad then. It's just that we're aware of it now. So you sort of
Okay,
notice these patterns of
but
stuff, and
yeah.
yeah, go on.
Well, like, I guess for me, I would think about things like January 6th or like Trump in general. And I guess there's still historical examples of that. So I guess that's just part of a cycle too, really. That like
Yeah, I mean,
radicalization, right wing,
I
rising out
think
of
there have been
yeah.
people. I think there have been right wing movements like that in the past. But Trump is almost a kind of uniquely unsuitable character for that position. So I
Yeah.
think that, I mean, ironically, he is one of the
Like dodging a
examples
bullet
which
almost.
uh, almost disproves my point, but I think proves it even more strongly in a sense. Is the visceral reaction people had to him was precisely because he was an aberration. Most presidents, regardless of how good or bad they've been, have been presidential to some extent.
Yeah.
Whereas he's just a profoundly grotesque human being on every level,
Yep.
and completely unsuitable, unfit, unprepared, unskilled, lazy. Just everything about him was unsuitable and or terrifying to have that
He
amount of
does have
control.
he does have one skill though, which is like, I guess, catering to a group of like a crowd basically.
Mm.
I don't know if it's people pleaser shit or what it like. It's basically
Well,
just,
no,
yeah, reading a
he,
room or
he
whatever.
well, it's not even reading a room because it's relatively straightforward. He's able to browse a certain part of the American population, right? And it's largely
Right.
kind of white people, and it's
Yeah.
largely and they're not necessarily always rural, but like people who feel like the American system has let them down, and they're
Hmm.
targeting completely the wrong people for why that's the case. But he's
Yeah, of
able to
course.
fear, which is not a difficult thing to do. He's not a particularly brilliant orator, but what he does is he
Right.
attacks all the wrong targets. And so the
Hmm.
people who followed are very spite based. It's about
Yeah.
it's not about what you. It's ironic that he says "Make America Great Again," because he's not about making America great. He's not actually about fundamentally changing America at all. It's just about hating the right people. That's all. That's all that is, which is really simple to do. Fascist people have been doing that for millennia. It's
Right.
targeting a specific group, a set of minorities to scapegoat for a much more difficult and systemic series of problems.
Yeah, which is, like you said, it's nothing new. So,
Mm.
but of course, Donald Trump still is an aberration. So we got in that position somehow. I probably just as a result of like capitalism and neoliberalism, like trying to keep itself out of total collapse as things kind of deteriorate, material conditions, I would say, um,
Well,
leading
he's
to
the prime
people feeling.
example.
He's a prime example of what?
Oh, sorry, he's a prime example of the American empire desperately trying to sustain itself in a way,
Hmm.
or the fact that the American empire has tried so successfully or otherwise to sustain itself has led to Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is not. But basically, Donald Trump is rich enough and well known enough because of his TV work over the years to get round the kind of informal checks and balances against idiots rising to the top. Like he shouldn't be able to get to where he is,
Yeah.
but he's rich enough to be able to buy his way there.
Yeah, well, we have systemic barriers in place of qualified people here. Like, you have
Mm.
people who are qualified who maybe could be great at something like being the president, if that's even a role that should exist in the way that it does. Like, people who are maybe more qualified, if they can't get on a certain ballot, if you can't get in with the right people, then it, you know,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter.
I'm always reminded of the bit from The Simpsons, ironically, of back when The Simpsons was good, of Homer as a child. It's like a flashback, and Homer's speaking to his dad and says, "Oh, Dad, I want to be president of the United States." And his dad says, "Boy, there are systems in place to prevent people like you from becoming president." Because obviously he's a stupid person. Homer Simpson's a profoundly stupid
Yeah.
person.
So much for
And
Simpsons
and that,
predicting everything, unless that was the prediction. Foreshadowing.
well, yeah, I don't know. Well, they did actually mention, didn't they, President Trump as a joke back in the
Yep.
90s, which,
Coming down an
again,
escalator to make an announcement for
the monkey
president.
poor finger curled, and fate went the way they did. But yeah, there are sort of systems in place to prevent people from getting to that position, and sometimes that's a bad thing because it's quite classist and
Yep.
racist in many respects. But in some respects, it's actually quite good because it prevents possibly very unsuitable candidates, stupid, dangerous, impulsive
Yeah.
people from getting to those positions. Although, again, with people like Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump, it's not always foolproof because, again, often fame and fortune allows you to get past those barriers in a way that you really oughtn't.
Yeah. I mean, we could name a lot of Congress people though, and like, I don't know if we describe them as stupid. Like, they definitely, a lot of them have personas that they
Laura
play.
Boebert
Like,
is stupid.
oh no, she
I'm
is.
going to put
Trust
that
me,
out
I know.
there.
I that's that one we can say for certain. Definitely.
Yeah. I think my favourite
Yes.
is Tommy Tuberville. Is the most
Yeah.
profoundly stupid human being I've ever seen. I don't know how he ties his shoelaces in the morning.
Does he? Did he have somebody else
Well,
do it?
someone does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Out
he's
of
able
the
to walk,
assembly line today.
so like, he
Yeah.
has basic motor skills, so that's something. That's
I
about
mean,
it, really. I've heard he's got no fucking brain cells.
yeah. Well, that's. I mean, I don't know. I guess like a lot of them aren't stupid, but they are dangerous. I would say based on selfishness or self-seeking behaviors. But I feel like the system definitely corrupts a lot of people really quickly. Or even if it's not corrupting you, it's basically just like you get in and it's like, how do you actually? Are you really going to be able to change shit? Like even if you have some sort of like really progressive messaging,
Yeah.
no. So what are you going to
Yeah,
do?
it grinds people down. The kind of, I think they call it the Beltway in America, or like the Westminster Bubble here in the UK. There's like a kind of mentality around positions of power and authority that lead to conformity, right? People who, like you say, even if they go in there with the best of intentions, with good progressive ideas and all the rest of it, get sort of co-opted within the system. I think we've seen a great example with John Fetterman, the senator from Pennsylvania, recently, who got
Yeah.
elected on the basis of a progressive alliance in blah blah blah, and is now
Yep.
like, I mean, a little more than a GOP member at this point.
I haven't followed,
So
so
yeah, I
that's
think
really disappointing to hear.
no, he's very poor form. Yeah, he and a lot of people like that, I think, get ground down by the system. You get kind of sucked into an alternative reality when you step into Washington, it seems, and it sort of
Right.
infects who you are and changes who you are to being kind of unrecognizable. Like if you could go back in time to the person who was trying to get elected first, they wouldn't even recognize you anymore.
There's some level of like idealism that maybe hard to hold on to if you get in and you see like how shit actually is working, and how the sausage is made or whatever, and then it's like I could understand how somebody would be like, even if you could justify it to yourself at least and say, well, if I want to do anything, I'm gonna have to play within these rules, and then maybe I'll figure it out. But like, I don't think that really happens. I don't know what else you do. I mean, I wanted Bernie Sanders to like, just just go hardcore with the rhetoric. You know, he's before you get out of office. Why not? I don't know, like really fucking rile shit up because he's always so. He does his Bernie style, but he needs to like. I probably wouldn't actually do much. Maybe just make a bunch of. I mean, it would make a lot of conservatives cry a lot. So that I mean, again, like
It
if
would,
we
and
can
that
get
would be
anything out of
fun.
it. Yeah.
Well, this is, I think, the distinction we have to make. It's okay for people like me or you or whatever online to do the kind of Schadenfreude thing
Yep.
of mocking the other side and kind of playing up to the kind of leftist stereotype, I guess.
Yep.
But I think from Bernie Sanders' perspective, he cops a lot of flack, and some
Yeah.
of it quite rightly because his positions aren't particularly great on some issues. But I think what he is a far more strategic thinker, long
Yep.
term,
I agree
than
with that.
most people in Congress and most leftists, frankly. Is that if he just goes ham now, he leaves a legacy of ammunition
Yep.
for opponents to leftists down the track of saying, "Look, you're extreme, you're unreliable, you're
Right.
likely to fly off the handle," and so he's
Becoming
playing
a
a kind of long
scapegoat.
term
Yeah.
optics game. And I think, like I say, he's one of the few genuine strategic thinkers, and I think he's playing it pretty well. Actually, I think we will look back on the Bernie Sanders era as potentially a missed opportunity. Like he could have maybe become president, although that seems
Yeah, it's
a
hard to
little bit
say.
unlikely, but certainly it was possible.
We
But
might
I
have had
think
January
ultimately,
6th, but just for a different reason. Now it's Bernie.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He he. I think we'll look back at it as a victory for pushing progressivism onto a more mainstream stage and moving the conversation leftward, which I think is a
I mean,
genuinely
absolutely.
positive thing.
That's literally. I mean, I don't know. I had a friend in college. I was running at the college radio station. I had somebody doing a political show. They were all into Bernie Sanders, like early 2016 or primary against Hillary Clinton, and like that was the first I had heard
You were
of.
at college,
What's that?
college in 2016.
Yes. Well, actually, I don't.
You're a
No,
baby.
I wasn't in college in 2016. I graduated in 2015, but I worked. I worked at the
Oh,
college. Still though,
you're
just
a
one
little,
year.
you're a small boy.
Wait, how old are you?
I am 36.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
29. So
yeah. There you go.
I'm 29. I have two
Terrible.
kids and a divorce. So
Well, I have no
hey,
kids and no divorce.
good job.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. Yeah, I've avoided trying to live at all.
what's that?
I was just joking about having no life at all. Anyway,
Yeah.
um, yeah.
Yeah, no, I
Lovely.
definitely got exposed to like, well, even the word socialism being used in a non-derogatory or, you know, bad faith way was probably from Bernie Sanders. And then I was like,
Yeah,
oh, what is that? And then, but like the rest is history. I mean, literally.
that's the thing. Yeah, socialism was very much a dirty word, and even though
Yep.
Bernie Sanders isn't really a socialist as such, the fact that that word is being used in that way, like you say,
Right.
exposes it to people, and then people look into
Well,
it.
I think
So
that's
it's a
the
way of
strategic thing. Like, I think he did that
yeah, exactly.
strategically.
Yeah, it's a way of bypassing the bullshit because if all you ever hear is socialism is bad because that's what the press tell you is the case, then
Yep.
you go into it with a kind of poisoned well already. Whereas if you say, well, Bernie Sanders is cool and he's a socialist, and then you look into it, you kind of remove that negative filter from it and give it a fair chance in the marketplace of ideas, right? And a
Yeah,
lot of people are
that
drawn towards
place.
it because it seems so scary anymore.
Yeah, for sure. If they're not closed-minded off to it to begin with, which you know many Americans are, especially if they're older, because they're either like
Exactly.
remember Red Scare
Yeah,
shit or they're just behind, like not that far from it.
the thing, yeah, you've got a very, it's still a fringe opinion in general, of course. We
Yeah,
mustn't get too far ahead of it. But like you say, I think that the generational gap is important because doing that Red Scare shit, hasn't been put on kids as such because the Soviet Union doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
And secondly, it doesn't really work because when they say like, um, oh no, socialism would be terrible because it would turn the country into an unequal place where you can't afford to do this, that, and the other. And most
Yeah.
young people look around and go, can't do that now. Like,
Yeah.
how would that be
Yeah.
different? Exactly.
Yeah, you kind of exposing
Like
yourself with that one.
You can't sell the American dream to people who are awake. Is I think the old line, isn't it?
Right. Yeah, and I mean that's the thing about material conditions. They're right in front of you. Like you can't lie to somebody and tell them that something is that's right in front of them is not there. Or talk about how amazing America is number one. Like, so the only other option is either be like, hey, the system is kind of fucked up. We have to actually do more fundamental change, or find somebody to blame it on, and then direct like the energy that way.
Exactly. That's why the right wing point towards immigrants or LGBT people or degeneracy or whatever absurd abstraction they want to use, because it's easier. Because they actually benefit from the system, and so they want to protect that system by getting everyone to look at someone who isn't causing the problem. Which is Donald Trump's whole, his whole thing. Blame Muslims, blame whoever, but don't blame him. Capitalists for doing the evil shit.
So, you mentioned the press, like saying socialism is bad. I almost feel like, and maybe that's different, like where you're at. I feel like here it's been so demonized to the point of being like erased from our vocabulary almost, because we don't talk about that. The press. I mean, like I've been a reporter for 5 years or something now, and like you don't. It's just not a word that is even ever really mentioned at all. Which is interesting.
I think we've had a similar sort of thing to the Bernie Sanders experience with a guy called Jeremy Corbyn, who was the leader of the Labour Party in the UK. He's a socialist and professes so and uses that word. And so, in the same way that Bernie Sanders has made that word more acceptable in American discourse and has led to a lot of people looking into that in a way that they wouldn't have in the past, we've had a similar sort of renaissance of that word in recent years, and so you've seen it go from being, like you say, completely almost erased in the kind of 90s and 2000s, being a word where a lot of people either very pro it, or the kind of media have ramped up their kind of, I don't know, a kind of modern Red Scare type thing where they try and recognize it, but like the cat's already out of the bag type thing.
Yeah. Or they try to make these like weaker arguments against it. They try and like criticize, like they'll try and just say the weirdest arguments or the easiest ones to poke holes in, like literally just not unironically, who's going to pay for all this? It's like, do we not know how like taxes work? Do we not understand how things get funded?
Well, that's the thing. Like America, it's so odd when people say, "Who's going to pay for the healthcare?" Every other country in the world does it, and you're the richest country in the world. It should be easiest for you to do it. You have all of the money. What the fuck? What do you mean? Who's going to pay for it? Everyone's going to pay for it.
Well, bro,
how taxes work. Yeah.
The military's running out of bullets. Okay, apparently. So we're going to need more.
You spend so much money on the military, and yet it doesn't actually seem to be functioning at all.
Well, hey,
what the fuck is wrong?
Hey, we got to spend $1,000 per shell because of China. So if it wasn't for fucking China and communism over there, then we wouldn't have to spend $1,000 per bullet, and maybe then we'd be able to afford healthcare. But no.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think the more critical or like potent underlying, the insidious, how many ways can I say it, thing that happens here is, it's not even about the economic discussion or a real good faith discussion of like how resources are allocated. It's more fundamentally people are ingrained to believe that they don't deserve shit, like because they didn't work for it or whatever. However they're
Yeah.
placing it, it's like really more of a core belief like that of like you don't, if you're poor or you don't have healthcare, whatever it is, that's on you.
Yeah, it's the individualizing, the atomizing of it all, and seeing yourself as just a person who works or doesn't work, or like you say, is deserving or undeserving, rather than as there being systems in place which mean that not everyone can be rich. So even the paradigm just doesn't work. Or seeing yourself as part of a larger group of people, a nation or a class or whatever particular thing you want to say, that collectively could afford to do all of these things. And even if some people you think of as undeserving get a thing, if everyone gets the thing, isn't that worthwhile?
That's the price we have to pay. It makes more sense.
System. I mean, fucking Donald Trump is the ultimate gamer of the system.
Real.
How many times has he gone back to avoid to pay people he owes money to? Like, people, people take advantage of the system. That's the thing that's always going to happen, unfortunately.
Yep.
So
no, that's such a good point. Such a good point. Not moochers at the bottom. What about the moochers at the top? What about the people who fucking get tax bailouts and then get golden parachute, like CEO shit?
Welfare costs way more than fucking food stamps. Jesus.
Yeah, no shit. Everything costs way more than any kind of program. Like, I remember, if I need to go check this number again so I can memorize it for sure. But I remember when they were passing the first, maybe whatever it's called, whatever. There's a special budget that they pass. It's not like the main budget, but there was a budget that they were going to pass.
Discretionary?
Sorry, say that again.
Discretionary?
No, it's like I can't remember what it is, but like what the Democrats are able to put certain things in there. Maybe it is that. I don't know. It doesn't matter the name ultimately. The point is that like they had put in this budget two things that are very important to me. One was like a stipend for businesses to advertise in local newspapers as a way of like subsidizing local news, basically. And also providing advertising to like stimulate business. So that would have like saved a lot of newspapers. That got taken out, and I'm just mentioning that one on the side. The one that they were putting in was 2 years of free community college, and whatever the cost of that was, they took it out, right? They cut it from the budget ultimately. Like it almost made it in, just like got cut out at the last minute, if I remember correctly. And then when they passed the military budget, the same budget cycle, the military budget was not only increased by how much the military asked for, it was increased above what the military asked for by more than it would have costed to do the thing that they cut out of the budget, which was the 2 years of community college. So it's like,
yeah, that's mad.
It's insane. Like, I mean, that's not even just asking the question of how big the military budget is to begin with, but it's like the increase above and beyond what they asked for would have paid for the thing that they said we couldn't afford.
Yeah, this is the thing that I think needs to be focused on more, is the nonsense of, as described, people saying, well, how can we afford this? Well, I mean, no one asks that question when it comes to massive military budget expansion. Who's paying for this? How is this being paid? But what other systems what other programs are being cut, or how much more money is being borrowed? Again, ironically, from China to protect you from China. Brilliant. Like, who's paying for this? How is that happening?
Well, I mean, it's all made up at the end of the day, but that's not like most people aren't approaching that conversation.
The national debt in America, you're never paying that money back. $12 trillion. That's never happening. That's more than like virtually everything on Earth combined. You're never paying that money back. Stop pretending you can. Ridiculous.
It's dumb.
You're gonna default on that at some point. Yeah, it gets bigger and bigger every fucking day.
Yeah, like that's not even how. Okay, well, we watched something. Actually, it was Lauren Boebert. It wasn't this stream, but it was the last stream I did before this, we kind of focused on Lauren Boebert because we haven't for a minute, and because she made an announcement that day that she was switching from Colorado's 3rd congressional district to the 4th, which is on the other side of the state. She doesn't live there. It's ridiculous, but like we watched a thing. I don't know who she was talking to. It just kind of came up on YouTube, I think. And she was basically asking that question of like, how if you calculate the 34 trillion, whatever the, like, how much is that per citizen? And like the person she's talking to is just like, well, that's not really how debt works. But Lauren Boebert's just like, excuse me, and just keeps doing the same, like repeating the same words, basically.
Yeah, look, obviously it's going to be millions of dollars per American citizen, but the American citizen isn't being asked to pay that back because, again, it's never going to get paid back. All America can do is pay the interest to cover it, and that's it. That's all that can happen forever, basically, until it collapses at some point in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe nearer than we realize. I don't know, maybe not. It's just like overextended
I don't know. I think
empire.
you've got a good 100 years left, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. I guess so. I don't know.
I mean, basically every generation now going forward is just trying to kick the can far enough down the road that they'll be dead by the time it happens.
Yeah, well, or
exacerbating
the issue by getting the fuck out if they're smart. Maybe, I don't know. I guess getting out's not really going to help anyone because we're all fucked at the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, it's exactly. It's much like with global warming or whatever, or climate change. That we'd hope that we go, oh, actually, this is what we're doing now is a really bad idea. It will have massive long-term implications. Maybe we should turn this ship around whilst we still can. But they just don't. Look, it's much easier to just pretend like it isn't
push
there.
The pedal harder. Yeah, no, actually, I've considered. I haven't considered it. You know what I have considered? Going even harder on the fucking gas pedal. Like, all right, fuck everything then, I guess, if that's the attitude. Like, yeah, I don't know.
Pretty much. Like when they're having the COP meeting, the International Climate Change meeting in the United Arab Emirates, the 6th largest producer of oil on the planet, they're kind of laughing in our faces, you know, like
and they're flying there in private jets. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, going in private jets to talk about how we need to recycle every fucking jam jar or whatever. Like, it's just ridiculous.
Jam jar. Yeah, I mean, I live somewhat near like where Aspen, Colorado is, and like obviously that's a wealthy mecca. That's one of the places where they'll go vacation and stuff. The ultra wealthy.
Yeah, like a skiing place, right?
Yep. Yeah, and there's a lot of places like that in Colorado. A lot of ski resorts but Aspen's one of those ones. And like, it's interesting because they're so concerned. I've covered a lot of stuff in Aspen where they're talking about climate change, and it's always like, they're always so concerned about it because they're liberals or whatever. There's a lot of liberals there. I mean, like, the conservatives probably keep to themselves. Whatever, like, there's a lot of people there who are concerned about climate change, and it's always framed, they're always tugged at their heartstrings with what? The ski hill. Like, and it's like motherfuckers, people have to drive up valley to get to Aspen. They have to drive from down valley. Thank you for the follow, Spunky Sack. They have to drive up this Highway 82 that's like completely fucking packed full of cars every day. Like, and it's just like super dangerous. It's completely overpacked with cars. It's ridiculous. And here they are sitting up in their like fancy Aspen abodes or whatever meeting place they're at, that they're going to be here for 1 week tops and have their little fancy meetings and talk about how this is just so concerning. What are we going to do? Blah, blah, blah. We have to do something. And then like, meanwhile, I drove here from a long ass ways away because I have to pay my bills. Like, I'm burning everything to get here. And then you're going to hop in a plane and fly away. That's the kind of thing that makes me sort of empathize or sympathize with, like, people who are like, fuck the Democrats. They're all hypocrites. It's like, yeah, they all are. All of the politicians, and all of those, like,
yeah. Well, I mean,
yeah.
When they say things like well, if you try and prosecute Trump, then maybe you could prosecute Obama. And you're like, okay, yeah.
Yes.
If he did
Yes.
crimes, yeah, cool. I'd like that's yeah.
Please do.
I actually think everyone should be equal under the law. Ironically, yeah.
Wow. That's what they wait, I remember this. Oh, that's right. That's what they taught us when we were kids. And now we're being like,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
now we're being
Isn't that the
like, so
Constitution?
isn't that the thing
Remember
that we
that?
were supposed to do? They're like, well, except for when we don't.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well then you're exactly like them. So yeah, what are we doing? What's up, Beacons? You look like Zach Morrison if he was created by Tim Burton. Okay. I'm not good at visualizing things, especially right now. Okay, there's one other thing I kind of want to ask about. Well, I don't know what your timetable is like.
Yeah, got time. I'm cool.
Maybe there's two things. So I'm a local journalist. I write for a newspaper that is in a county with like 5,000 people. The distribution actually exceeds the county because there's a website and everything. There's a lot of like regional interest in whatever we're covering, but I have that perspective of local and like hyper local news, and the paper's been around for 138 years. It's one of the only like independent newspapers in the state, and these start to get bought up or just go out of business, whatever. I guess I'm curious what your thoughts are on local news, or like what is your experience with it there? And if the answer is just like none, 'cause I'm not sure if you live in like a city or if you live in a where, but
yeah, I live in Birmingham, which is the second largest city in the country.
Okay.
And
there would still be some level of like local news, right? Because you have like enclaves or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have
There local papers and shit. Yeah. And unfortunately, it's quite similar to the experience I think that you were kind of outlining there. Of a lot of the papers are owned by a very small number of people or companies. There's very little in terms of independent news coverage.
Is there government controls on that? Like, is there like rules about ownership?
Yeah, there are government controls on monopoly and stuff like that, but they're pretty weakly enforced, and the kind of the government
the idea of
Ofcom communications, and their enforcement mechanisms are really weak. It's like the UN but worse. Like they can put out a strongly worded letter, and that's about it.
Oh, okay. That's kind of like our what we call sunshine laws, which are like open meetings laws. Which, don't get me wrong, we bang the drum in the fucking local like elected officials' ears all the day to scare them so that they don't do sussy shit in private that they're not supposed to do. But like, at the end of the day, if they decide to go sneak around and have secret private meetings and make secret decisions and do whatever, like, what what recourse do we have? Not a lot. So it's one of those things that, it's like a toothless regulation. But it's funny you mentioned monopoly. It's funny the whole idea of a monopoly. Like, if our standard is monopoly, like, oh, you're not allowed to have this. Like, by the time they have that, dude, we're fucked. Like, there's no going back.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't you can't get rid of a monopoly. They already have everything. That's literally what that is.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's not just monopoly that's the problem, it's collusion. It doesn't matter if there's 100 owners of different companies. If they're all in cahoots with one another to do the same thing, then effectively
it's a monopoly, but it appears to be something else.
Yeah.
Basically.
Which in some respects is more dangerous because it makes it seem like it's okay and people ignore the problem.
Yep. Sneaky. Well, that's like why we have such bad internet in the United States, broadly speaking, is because the, telecommunications companies that are owning that infrastructure, which is built on infrastructure that was publicly funded to begin with, but they somehow own it, two companies, and they'll just say, hey, never upgrade your shit, we'll never upgrade ours at the bare minimum. And then we won't have to pay to upgrade it, and nobody can go anywhere else.
It's not a market because you literally can't leave. It's either that or nothing. Yeah.
Well, but we do have like 700 kinds of cereal or
Yeah,
more.
exactly. Like there are 400 brands of toothpaste. Oh, brilliant
Yeah,
thing.
the things that are like the most fleeting and the most like bad for you or the environment, we have that out the ass. But if it's like infrastructure, healthcare, your basic needs, it's like
Yeah.
maybe you get that, but it'll be kind of shitty. Housing, like good luck.
Yeah, it'll be shitty and very expensive. Yeah.
Yeah, and it'll be like your number one fucking cause of stress and turmoil in your life. Like as if you're actually surviving back in the day before we figured out what electricity was and shit.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's interesting. I was curious about. I did want to ask you, like you mentioned you read or watch the news, uh, regularly. So do you just have one go to? Do you have sort of a process? Like how does that work for you?
Oh, yeah. I like to take in all kinds of different sources of news from TV, radio, internet, newspapers, whatever. And if I could give one piece of advice to people is to learn media literacy because
Yep.
it's so important. The
Yep.
Every news source you ever go to has some kind of bias to it. Nothing's ever completely unbiased. It's written by humans, after all. Well, until
Yeah.
the AI takes over, and then we're all fucked
Well,
again.
and you shouldn't
But
expect you shouldn't have that expectation for it to be non-biased. Like that's a false
yeah,
premise or idea that like
yeah.
that's what it's going to be. It's not.
Well, exactly, yeah. And so it's about understanding what the bias of a particular, say,
Yep.
newspaper is, and then from there you can decode what they're trying to say, right? And that, for me, is the way in which I go about it. Is taking in different news sources from different political angles and trying to get. It's like having different views of the same situation. You get a better perspective on what the truth of a thing is by taking in those various different angles.
Yep. It
And
gives
you
you
get a
that
better
awareness,
idea for the way in
context.
which different political organizations or different political strains want the world to see the thing, because you get see those kind of tropes of the way in which like a right wing newspaper will interpret the same story as some more liberal newspaper or something like that. Which
Yep.
that for me is interesting as well.
Yeah, definitely the comparison, the analysis. The way I look at it is just like, well, because as a reporter, I try to just put it as plainly as possible. But there have been stories that I've been more certainly emotionally invested in to whatever extent. And, maybe the structure of it or whatever changes. But when I'm reading through articles, a lot of times I'm looking at it like, why is this not at the start? I'm looking at the structure of the article, like what information is ultimately looking what information is presented here and valid information, like what is presented in this article, what are we learning from it, and if we're saying we're learning that information from this article, like how credible is it, where are they getting their information from, and that's basically how I would look at it, even if it's from like a right-wing source. Like, okay, they're presenting information here, this shit right here is just bullshit, like they're not even saying anything other than like using fancy language to fill the gap or to make you feel emotional or something. So that's normally how I'd look at it, and I'm glad that you like advocate for that, because I agree, that's really important.
It is, yeah. Honestly, it would make political dialogue in general far better if people didn't just take it for read. Like, for instance, Fox News is the ultimate example for me of, or should I say, the idiocy with which a lot of Fox News viewers just take what they say on Fox as true, rather than trying to analyze it or trying to ask what the station is actually trying to tell them. It's just straightforward propaganda, and it's so obviously propaganda.
So
People
obvious.
play it up. They want to be lied to, and
Yep.
that's really depressing to think about, really.
Yeah, well, they don't have a standard for, and they haven't been taught, they haven't been given the structure, like the they haven't practiced even in the process of like determining what is true, how you come to determine it, and how you self-examine and like
Exactly.
compare
back
it
to
against your own biases, see where you're, fallible.
it goes back to education fundamentally, which is why
Yep.
Republicans don't want to fund education. Because if you taught not just media literacy but general skepticism
Yep.
to children, the GOP would die.
Yeah. I mean,
It would
in a
just
lot
not
of
exist
extents,
anymore.
they are dying, but that's why it's so dramatic, like, all the time, because, like, when it comes to young people aren't going there. They could see that
Yeah.
future, but, they have enough legs to keep fucking, and power, entrenched power, to keep holding us
they've got
back
so,
as
I
long
mean,
as possible.
the fact, I mean, it's I don't know how you feel about it, but the fact that each state gets 2 senators is fucking
It's fucking
ridiculous.
ridiculous. Fuck the Senate.
They get such an inbuilt advantage when 40 million or whatever, I don't even know, of California get 2 senators, and then the 12 people of Wyoming get 2 senators. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Is
Well, and
that
there's
democratic in any
there's
way?
no, and there's this assumption too that, like, well, if California got as much representation as blah blah blah, that would be a huge. But, like, California is maybe blue because of the population centers there. I don't know. I guess there is significantly more, like, people who would vote Democrat. So yeah, the Republicans wouldn't exist in that scenario if there was fair
Oh, it's
representation.
so odd that the GOP never win the popular vote.
Even
Like,
in our
America's
unfair
a much
system, yeah,
more,
they have to
yeah,
do voter suppression and
America's
shit just to
far
win.
more liberal place than
Yeah,
your elected officials would lead you to think. Because
right.
again, the system is so
Yeah,
stacked with the electoral college and the 100 senators and all the rest of it. Like, it's just so stacked in favor of right wing gerrymandering. Basically, they've gerrymandered the entire system from start to
yep,
finish. Like you say, voter suppression. You've got some of the most absurdly drawn boundaries. Even when they get found to be racist, like in, was it Alabama, I think, Georgia, or one of the southern states, they still try and redraw the boundaries to still be
yeah.
racist, and it has to
I
go
think it
back to
was
the Supreme
Georgia.
Court again. Yeah,
The
like, it's
the
just
big
so
recent
from
one. Yeah.
top to bottom. They've just tried to rig the system rather than, maybe trying to get people to vote for them because they would have good policies. Maybe, you know.
Yeah, well, in Colorado and a couple other states now, we have, like, independent redistricting commissions, and those can be political of their own, but
Yeah,
at least it's better. But, like, yeah,
yeah.
states like that, because of the powers that exist, and will do everything to maintain that, regardless of the popular vote. Like,
Yeah.
that's really really difficult to change. But I mean, even within our system now, the Democrats or whatever the liberals. Oh, actually, this is what I wanted to touch on real quick. Is I think there's also a potent, like, it's a normal liberal country. I agree with that. And, like, most people have generally salient opinions about, like, they have sane opinions if you just talk to them and be like, well, don't you think this on a one-to-one? But there's also this like, really potent reactionary thing because of the fact that that right-wing power is so hard to overcome, and the way that that affects people's material conditions. They get radicalized at the wrong shit. They're radicalized for good reasons, but at the wrong,
Yeah.
towards the wrong, like we were talking about earlier. So
Exactly.
it's
Well, it's
difficult.
it's playing to people's prime fears.
Yeah.
It's they're scared, they're apprehensive, they're poor, and therefore defensive of the very little they have. And these things can be exploited by unscrupulous individuals, and that's where Donald Trump has been successful, is exploiting people's fear and anger and redirecting it in entirely negative, indeed counterproductive ways. But it doesn't sort of matter for the perspective of Donald Trump because he's just trying to get their vote. He was going to bring the jobs
Yep.
back. He didn't bring the jobs back, but
Well, and this is cynical, but it's
he
true. It's
did the
like
same.
he speaks at a fourth grade reading level or whatever, and that's
Yeah.
like a lot of Americans understand that.
Honestly,
So
the best way to understand the way in which Donald Trump is so, borderline illiterate, is read a speech of his. Don't listen
yeah,
to him speaking. Read the words as printed on the page, and
if
you
you could
realise,
possibly bear it, read it. Yeah,
yeah, this man he doesn't ever complete a sentence.
yeah.
It's just
We
he's
have
like
that. Yeah,
he's like a pigeon pecking at bread on the ground. He just sees another crumb and he's gone, and he here, there, and everywhere. It's such
Scattered as a
rubbish, you know?
motherfucker. Yeah, no, we run into that a lot with the like local officials too, where they'll get mad because they look really bad in a story because you quote them, and it's like, this is literally what you said. I don't know how else to like. Yeah, you sound stupid. You don't think it when you're saying it because you like your voice or something. You're hearing your own voice, but read your words back, and it's like, that's what you said. That's what it means.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right. Well, I better go and get ready for Supernatural Rider. I'm not sure if you're familiar. They're a co-working streamer, but our groups are kind of mingled
Well,
together.
yeah. Boy, yeah, thanks for having me on. This was fun, and congrats on being able to stay awake for this long, at the very least.
Yeah. Last time I had even more going on with stream. I didn't even like freestyle this time or play the drums, but we're getting there. We're an hour away. No, 2 hours away. So from the 24-hour mark.
Well, congrats.
So. Yeah, Sarah said it's funny. Sarah said she didn't think we'd talk about politics, which is interesting to me. Maybe just because I haven't had, that I haven't talked about that on stream a lot lately. But I'm wondering now. I'm gonna have to be like, well, what were we gonna talk about that? I just like to let it go where it goes. So maybe we could chat again in the future about something else as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Enjoy your evening and congrats.
Thank you and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Levelhead.
I am
Levelhead.